Okay. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to SerenityOS Office Hours. It is Friday, and I think I got my microphone working. Yeah, we're going to do what we usually do on Fridays, which is talk about SerenityOS. So, if you saw yesterday, I posted a car talk video for the first time in forever, and I'm going to try to make new car talk videos going forward, and as part of that I'm going to try to do shorter office hours to sort of conserve some of that interaction energy or whatever, and I think we'll do like an hour of office hours instead of the 2 hours, because that seemed pretty reasonable last week. Anyways, that's the status of that. Hello, everybody. Hello, Jeja, Colton, Kenneth, and Daniel. Welcome to the the Golden Yak Herd. Enjoy the fancy emotes, and thank you for the support. Good to see everybody here. So, but the office hours format remains the same. We're just going to do a little bit shorter. If you're new to the stream, what we do is we just talk about SerenityOS and the related projects like Yacht and Ladybird, the browser, and anything that you want to talk about, just ask and we will dig into it. Hello, Boris. Sorry to startle you. Undefined, Slendy with the golden yak as well. It's so funny to see these silly golden yaks. But very nice of you to support the channel. Okay, so I guess while we hold for somebody to bring the first technical or non-technical question of the day, I just built Serenity before starting the stream, which I have not tested in a few days. So it's a lot of focus on the Ladybird cute application for me recently, and I definitely want to get back to random Serenity hacks soon, but it's so fun to do like just one more little website fix, one more little CSS fix, right? And the development loop is that much tighter on Linux at the moment. So still, it looks like the system is in good shape, hasn't deteriorated, which we appreciate. Let's see. Jeja says, Halloween soon, floating head office hour. Hide the microphone and have a shirt that matches the green screen. I think we can definitely do something like that. It sounds super goofy, which would be just right for Halloween. Let's see. The literal definition of bruh says, I think you talked about this before, but how do you avoid programming dread? I start a project, there's a big task to do, and then I dread doing that task and things end up worse. So my best tip for this, because everybody gets this, I think, like whatever kind of project you start, there's always going to be components of it that are more fun and other components that are less fun. And some of them downright dreadful. And what I try to remember is that it's okay to make a sucky version of something, because a sucky version of something dreadful is still better than no version of something dreadful, right? So allowing yourself to write like a janky piece of crap can often help you progress through that stuff that seems like dreadfully undoable or whatever, and then somehow once you get through that crappy version, once you come out the other side of that, it's usually easier to go back and like iterate on it and clean things up and so on. But at least in my experience, I need to get past that first hurdle of feeling like I don't even want to implement something because it's so boring or so daunting or whatever. So yeah, that's my best tip for that. And I've heard many different variant of that. But I think that's what it boils down to sort of allow yourself to work at perhaps a lower standard than you would with other stuff, just to get through it. And then, of course, clean it up in the long term, but as a self hack to get through it. The Kitco says, so you will still be doing office hours, right? Someone mentioned you might pause. Yeah, I'm still going to do office hours. I really enjoy the interactivity of the live streaming and the just being able to chat with people. It's a lot of fun. I don't want to lose that, but I also want to reintroduce the longer format videos that we had with, like 1 or 2 questions that I could then talk about for a longer time. That was really enjoyable. So the idea is to do both, just to scale back a little bit on the office hours, as I mentioned, to 1 hour instead of 2, so that I don't have to spend every Friday night feeling dead from streaming. Let's see. Colton says, where's the best place to send car talk ideas / requests? Obviously, you don't have to take requests, just curious. I am absolutely happy to take requests. In fact, I would love it if people would send requests. And I think probably the best place to send them is in a YouTube comment, because those are very easy for me to collect and aggregate and so on. And yeah, that's probably the easiest, because then they don't get lost. I say now, and then 100 comments show up and I get lost. But I think a YouTube comment is probably the easiest. Of course, if no, that would work. Let's see. Boris said, you did a lot of libweb hacking yesterday. Do you mind demoing some fruits of your labor? Sure, I do not mind that. By the way, it's so weird in English where somebody asks, do you mind? And you say, sure, which sounds like you're saying, yes, I do mind, but you don't. So let's see. I have to remind myself what I was working on yesterday. Because I don't actually remember which part was which day. So what was I doing yesterday? It must have been the 6th. Yeah. Right. So yesterday was a lot of refactoring in libweb for me. So let me show you what the whole thing I was doing was about. Maybe the easiest thing to do is to just open up let's make a simple test page. So we will make a test page with an H1 and then maybe some friendly text. I don't know. I just want to have some kind of layout tree that I can look at. So let's see. I need to make it easier to open a file in Ladybird, by the way. That is still very inconvenient. Like, you have to manually type out the file URL like this, which is not perfect. So yesterday, I worked a lot on layout tree stuff. So the layout tree is basically a separate tree, separate from the DOM, which we create in order to facilitate layout according to the CSS specs. So the DOM nodes, i.e. the body, the H1, the P, and all these fellas, and the text in between them, that's the DOM tree. And then from the DOM tree, we build a layout tree. And what I've dumped here is the layout tree. I can also dump the DOM tree, which is probably more familiar if you never worked on a browser, but you've probably seen these kind of trees. But the layout tree is essentially a transformed representation where we combine the DOM tree with CSS. And CSS, we apply the CSS to the DOM tree in order to produce the layout tree. And then in the CSS specification, this is actually called the box tree. So maybe that's something we should consider calling it. But there are all kinds of rules for how to produce this layout tree or box tree from the DOM plus the CSS. And we had some things in libweb that were a little bit ad hoc or homemade, or however you want to say it. Not entirely made according to spec. So stuff that had been there since the original implementation of libweb. And nowadays, now that I've built a much better understanding of the CSS, now I'm aware of all these things that I've done incorrectly, architecturally speaking. So yesterday I had a big day of cleaning up stuff like that. And specifically, I was cleaning up the way inline nodes behave. So inline nodes are basically nodes that participate in inline layout. So there are two, in old school CSS, there are two types of layout. Nowadays, there's more types, but in the old style, there's blocks and there's inlines. And in our test page here, we have two blocks. So H1, the H1 forms a block and the P here forms a block, and blocks are laid out vertically, one underneath the other. Whereas inline content sort of streams or flows like text does. This is inline content, right? So there are all these rules for when inline content occurs in a document, how should it be represented in the layout tree? And we had a bunch of rules that were kind of just organically grown, and they didn't really match what the specification said, but they still happen to work, 95% of the time, that's a architectural bad spot to be in, because when you have something that is the wrong architecture, but it works in most cases, then there can be a lot of inertia, and you don't really want to uproot and change the architecture because it works almost always. But at the end of the day, if you want to cover all cases, you still have to solve stuff like that. So I think one of the issues I was working on specifically yesterday was to make inline flex behave correctly. So it's a bit of a rare thing, at least. You don't see it that often on the web. But basically, in addition to flex, you can also have inline flex, which is a flex box that behaves as inline content on the outside, so it can actually sit on a line. And it should look just the same. So if I just put an inline flex next to a bunch of text here, then you can't even tell that it's a flexbox container. Of course, if I change that to a regular flexbox, it becomes a block, and now it's positioned vertically and takes up the entire width of the thing. Anyway, this is just this type of stuff I was working on yesterday. So for inline flex to work correctly, we have to do a bunch of things, which include, for example, if you have text content inside of an inline flex container like this, like we do here, we have a piece of dumb text right inside the inline flex container. If you look at the layout tree, we locate the inline flex container right here. We can see that the text content has been wrapped in what's called an anonymous block container, or an anonymous block. That is because inline content cannot itself be a flex item in a flex container, but a flex container has to, if it has inline content directly inside the flex container, you have to wrap it into an anonymous block container box. So I was doing all these little fixes and incrementally moving towards being able to create that anonymous block container. And now we do, as you can see here, it has an anonymous container, which means that it can form a flex item, which means that it can participate in flex layout, which means that you can see this, which is very unimpressive. But I didn't really have a specific demo for this or anything. I just, there was a lot of architectural incremental refactoring towards being able to do stuff like this. And I don't know if any web content that we track actually improved from these changes, but there are now things you can do that you couldn't do before. So anyway, all that to say, I'm just working on a lot of little details like that. Now I wish I would have prepared a better demo. Let's see. Mati says, what do you think about create alternative to systemd for Serenity? So system server in Serenity already works more like systemd than the classic init systems in Unix. So I think you probably want to take a look at system server and how that works before you think that it's a classic init system, because it isn't. Let's see. Neuromancer Void says, hello, Andreas, from a Brazilian in Texas. Hello, Brazilian in Texas. Good to see you. Slendy says, what countries did you visit in your life? I have visited, I don't remember how many countries, maybe 15 or something like that. But I'm going to need a map. What countries have I visited? Let's get a map. So I've definitely visited Sweden. And wait, we should get one in English. How do you make this thing in English? Why is it not in English? Come on, Google Maps. You know, websites that choose language based on your location, I am definitely not a fan of that. Språk. Language, here we go. Yeah, finally. Okay, so countries I visited. Definitely all of these guys. Sweden, Norway, Finland. I've been to Lithuania, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, UK, Ireland, Hungary, Italy, of course, Portugal, and the US, Brazil. I guess those are the main ones that stick out. Probably more that I'm just not thinking of right now. Anyway, don't have to sit here and remember all of them right now. I think I wrote a list at some point. It also depends on how much you have to stay there for it to count, you know? Like, does it count if you had to fly through an airport in a country, but you never stepped outside the airport? Probably not. I wouldn't count that. Tim Raymond says, I presume Ladybird has not been ported to Windows because of some major architectural issues. What would need to be done to get Ladybird building and running on Windows without resorting to Windows Subsystem for Linux? So I don't know, I guess is the big answer to that. I'm not familiar enough with low-level Windows programming to know exactly what we need, but there's a lot of, like, we lean very heavily on the Serenity libraries in Ladybird, and the Serenity libraries lean very heavily on a Unix-like environment. So however you cut it, you're going to end up having to implement a bunch of Unixisms or a lot of the things that we have available to us in Unix, like, like file descriptor passing and the IPC layer using local sockets and stuff like that. Like whatever the Windows equivalent of those things are, you would need to implement. And of course it can be done, but it we basically need somebody to maintain it, to work on it, actively maintain it, and somebody who is familiar and knowledgeable with the platform. And I think there is kind of a cultural issue with Windows, which is that Windows is very much the odd one out of all the platforms that we care about today, because all the other platforms like Mac, Unix and Serenity, they're all Unix-like, and it's a very nice environment that we're all comfortable with. So even if somebody says like, oh, I want to maintain a Windows version of this, I think they're going to have to shoulder a pretty heavy maintenance burden. So I think, if Windows breaks, I think it's hard to get 100 Linux and Mac people to care too much about it. So for a Windows port to really work out, we would need a bunch of people using Windows to actually maintain and care about a Windows port. That said, a first step towards having a Windows port, of course, is somebody building the port and then allowing it to break without blocking everybody else. And once we can accumulate a team of people who care about Windows, if that would happen, then we can transition to being like no breakage allowed port. I guess those are my thoughts about that at this stage in time, at least. What's up, RMO? What's up, Daniel? Saying, had my first PR merged to the Yacht repo this week. Super awesome experience. Started with string interpolation, got yak baited for template literals, realized I need function overloading, and while working on this, missed some VS Code feature. The Yacht stack is real. It is very real. Absolutely. Isn't it great? You start working on something, and then before you know it, you're working on something else entirely, and having a great time while your scope just widens and slides around. The Kitco with the super chat. Thank you very much, the Kitco. Really appreciate the what's that? The Swiss franc. I think the truth. Swiss franc. Very cool. Thank you for that. Let's see. Ooh. Daniel saying, probably should have used this for the last message. Oh, and the last message was, thanks for starting this awesome community and good job attracting nice people. With the super chat. Thank you so much, Daniel. I am very happy that we've attracted so many nice people. I think it's so rare that somebody is unpleasant or rude in our community that whenever it happens, it's like an event. It really stands out. And that's definitely the type of space that I like to be in, where it's like a really weird, unusual thing if somebody is a jerk. So I agree. Very nice people around here. Thank you for the super chat. Boris says, thanks for explaining. Easier to rip off the architectural band-aid now than layer hacks on top. Yes, that is so true. And it's almost always easier to rip off the band-aid and deal with architectural problems sooner rather than later. Just sometimes you have to be willing, as I was talking about earlier in the stream, like you have to be willing to build that initial piece of crap and take shortcuts and so on. But there comes a time when you need to rip off the band-aid and do the proper architecture. And now YouTube is telling me it would be a good time to insert ads, which I like to announce, but we're not going to watch the ad. The literal definition of bruh says, how's Discord support so far? Got me wondering because I'm rewatching the Discord saga. Interesting. So I think Discord is slightly broken at the moment because some changes to the way we handle overflow, I think. So last time I looked at it, it was not possible to interact with the login page. And oh, it's even brokener than that because I think it's trying to create a web worker, and that now fails, crashes the engine because we don't have good enough worker support yet. and it actually crashes the engine during worker initialization. So that's something where we need to, we need to buckle down and work on workers. So maybe last time I worked on it, then the workers, we didn't have enough stuff that they would actually try to use the worker. And now we've progressed a little bit more, so they try to spawn a worker and things fall apart. Might be something like that. I haven't looked at it closely. But I know there's also some CSS overflow problems on the page, which we need to take care of. But yeah, as somebody was saying, Slendy was saying, I worked on Twitter. Yeah, so I've been working a lot on Twitter recently as well, which is a lot of ups and downs, but just trying to get the web client to render and to work in Ladybird. And as you can see, it takes its sweet time to load. But once it gets up, let's see if we can do a color scheme change. Will it be accepted? It was not. Sometimes that doesn't work. Yeah, so it's pretty laggy. JavaScript takes a long time to run, but the layout is really starting to look recognizable. And there's a handful of irritating issues remaining, like the positioning of SVG images, and as you can see here, there's like a bunch of margins that don't look right, and images are not showing up due to various combinations of issues. But moving forward, let's see. Johnny Rice says, what do you think about the Plan 9/9 front operating system and its ideas like plumbing? I don't have a lot of thoughts about those systems. I mean, I guess they seem like nice ideas, but I was never attracted to them personally. Don't know why. Just never got into it. Let's see. Shantanu says, does SerenityOS have a concept of a dialog designer for GUI/dialog based apps? Comparing it with Win32 dialog box-like apps? I'm not sure exactly what that means. We don't have a dialog designer. We do have the GML playground, which you can use to quickly prototype UI. Now, I have not used this in quite a while, actually, but the basic concept is that you type GUI markup on the left and you see the UI take shape on the right. Hello. And you can play around with the UI as you are making it. So that's something that we have, and then you would copy this text out or save this and then import that into your project, and that's how we use it. Daniel says, why aren't you using Ladybird for Google Maps? Ooh, that's actually a really good question. Let's see how that goes. Let's test it out. Let me in. It's not letting me in. All right, I'm gonna pretend to be Firefox. Hey, okay. It's a little bit of a lag here, I think. Who knows what they might be doing? Either we are just hung because we're doing something stupid. Oh no, I think maybe they were just processing the tiles or something. Okay, so it's very busted, but you can see that it's clearly loading the map, right? And I can zoom in and zoom out. But there seems to be a bunch of issues with the Canvas API, probably, like not... I don't know the specifics here, but I would imagine that they're trying to do stuff like arbitrary clips and things like that, and we don't support those. And probably other things as well that we don't support. Still, it is the map, and maybe I can see the whole world with this map if we can zoom out far enough. It's pretty cool that it loads at all. That initial speed bump was pretty chunky though. I need to profile that and see what it's trying to do. And now it has maybe died a little bit. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure that's dead. Anyways, that's why I was not using it, because it's not really working yet properly. Colton says, regarding Ladybird on other operating systems, what about Ladybird on Mac? So on the Mac, we've already seen it running on the Mac, although not after the most recent stuff. So the most recent big change in Ladybird is that now it's a multi-process browser. Actually, probably something I should also have mentioned. So before, we would run the rendering inside of the Ladybird browser process. So it was all just one big monolithic process, but now we've split it up. So this actually has a separate web content process for rendering, just like we do on Serenity. And this means that, you know, while you're doing something heavy like loading Google Maps, the browser is responsive and you can keep using other tabs. Oh yeah, this login loop here again. Let's pretend to be Chrome instead. So this is really nice. So even though you have heavy duty stuff going on, still totally interactive, just the way a modern browser is supposed to be. Of course, there are a million little issues, but this was a huge architectural leap forward for Ladybird, because it now also means that we share code between the SerenityOS browser and the Ladybird browser, which previously Ladybird had a lot of custom code for just for presenting the page and like reacting to viewport changes and stuff like that. And now a lot of that is shared with Serenity stuff. And the difference or the delta between the browsers is steadily shrinking, which I think is fantastic. In the end, like I would like the delta between the browsers to be as small as possible, right? So that we can, you change something, you fix something, and there's a high likelihood that you don't need to do anything different to get the fix on all platforms that we support. Yeah, this thing seems like a little bit, no? I don't know. Yeah, we definitely need to do some more work on Google Maps support, but it's coming along. Let's see. But yeah, so I was saying on the on the Mac, we've seen it running on the Mac, but I don't think it's been running after the multiprocess stuff was introduced. So that's going to require some work to get that up. Max Brown was saying, how easy would it be to set up Serenity on my little Raspberry Pi? Apologies if this is addressed in detail elsewhere. I don't know if it runs on the Raspberry Pi yet. I know there's an ongoing effort to port Serenity, the kernel, to ARM 64-bit. And Timon and some of the other folks are working on that. There's an AArch64 channel on Discord if you're interested, but I don't think the system is not like mature enough to run on the Raspberry Pi yet. It's still very much in the kernel development stage of things. Let's see, Carter with the super chat and the cute pear animation. Thank you, Carter. Very good. I appreciate the support. Thank you. Keyboard G says, recently learned about Git work trees. Is that something you use to work on multiple changes at the same time? So I've tried to integrate work trees in my workflow a couple of times, but I always end up not using it. It seems like a good feature with obvious use cases, but I just never seem to integrate it in my workflow, so I can't say that I use it, even though I might benefit from doing it if I just figure out how and when. Let's see, Fausto says, hello all. Been having tons of fun messing with some of the emoji related bugs in the text editor this week, hoping to get some commits in soon. That sounds great. There are definitely a bunch of emoji related issues in the text editor. Although, let's see how the emoji panel looks like. This is so cool, I think. Like the categories and everything. Animals and nature. The cool lion. The wise owl. But yeah, there are definitely issues. Oh, here's a bug, by the way. Notice how we're blinking here and we're blinking here at the same time. That doesn't seem right. Surely only one of them has the active input focus. If it's blinking in both places, I feel like if I type, it should show up in both places. But this panel clearly has focus, so that's some kind of a bug. We should not be blinking this thing. Not strictly emoji related, of course, just something that we noticed just now. Let's see. Raul says, I would like to see something like cucumber and gherkin into SerenityOS in order to make MVPs. I don't know what those things are. Cucumber and gherkin. Testing? What are cucumber and gherkin? API? Programming? Cucumber software. Behavior-driven development. All right. I don't know what that is, but if there's something that you would like to see in SerenityOS, or you would like to influence the project development practices or project structure and so on, I've got good news for you. You can actually do that by participating in development. So if you have some good ideas for how we could improve development of the system, then by all means, show us how to do it. Matt says, I recently got my first commit into SerenityOS. It was a small goal of mine, and I also got some motivation from Hacktoberfest. Well, congratulations on your first commit. I'm very happy to hear that. And I wonder if the Hacktoberfest thing is still on. Like, do they still give out the t-shirts? I know that they have some limit where like only the first 10,000 or whatever people get the t-shirt, right? Launch initiated. Anyway, I guess this is a good enough time, as good enough time as any to show you the Yaktoberfest t-shirt. If you're unable to get the Hacktoberfest t-shirt, but you still want a Toberfest t-shirt, we do have the Yaktoberfest t-shirt available in the SerenityOS store. If you've been yak shaving in the month of Yaktober, help yourself to one of these. Let's see, Evolve a project says 21.69999 followers. Yes, there is a floating point serialization bug in the engine in libjs where we don't serialize floating point numbers to the, I guess what would be called the optimal form. So clearly 21.7 would be nicer here, would make more sense. And all the other engines do it, but it's like a pretty big task. So I'm not too surprised that nobody picked it up yet, because it's a big task that solves a specific tiny little issue. But eventually we'll get to that as well. And actually, I'm pretty sure that this same bug also affects the SunSpider JavaScript test. So let's see if DuckDuckGo works. Hey, kind of. Can't close that menu. Okay. SunSpider JavaScript. I don't know if I'm typing into the thing. Not quite. Add DuckDuckGo to IE. I just want to see the SunSpider JavaScript benchmark. Can I get to it? Okay. What about Bing? Is anybody willing to help me search the web? All right. Yeah, so the SunSpider JavaScript benchmark also breaks because of the bogus floating point serialization stuff. So there's more than just Twitter to fix with addressing that. let's see. Oh man, I'm falling far behind here. That bastard over there says, is there any Yacht code in Serenity at the moment? There is no live Yacht generated code in the system yet, but the language is really starting to tighten up, I feel like, and it's definitely getting close to time to start looking at what we can do with it. JT is currently out on vacation, so I'm waiting for them to return next week, and we'll see what happens then. Vanta says, would a USB drive format tool like the one in Windows be a nice addition to SerenityOS? I think so. That could be an awesome tool. It definitely feels like that, like even on Linux these days, if I download a bootable USB image, it always feels like it's not as simple and straightforward as I would expect it to be to flash a USB drive. So I think that's something that would be nice to have and to like put front and center in the UI in the system, because it's such a common thing that you might want to do. Boris says, if April 1st ever lands on a Friday again, maybe we'll get a rare stream ad. Well, we'll see about that. Domingo says, what operating system are you using? This is Ubuntu Mate. Let's see. The Undefined says, I was just watching an old Car Talk video where you mentioned that at one of your previous jobs, your manager was breaking down tasks for you to make it more approachable. This kind of mentorship I don't have at work. I'm trying to find it now in Serenity. Still struggling to find stuff to work on, as I don't have much interest in a specific thing. Would it be possible for you or others to write down a specific needed real task and other folks pick up from those? So that's not really the development model of Serenity. It's very much intentionally developed in a way where people choose their own tasks, and we don't tell other people what to do. And I definitely try to avoid telling people what to do, because I want the system to come from people's own desire to hack, to explore, and so on. But in your specific case, though, we can still help you with that. It's just that you need to come up with the thing that you want to achieve, and then if you come and discuss it with us on Discord, then we can help you. We can help you figure out which parts are needed for it. But I feel particularly strongly that we shouldn't tell other people what to do. So come up with something that you want to do, and we'll help you get started on it. And we'll help you break it down. Eric says, nice to see the return of Car Talk. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that people like the return of Car Talk. I also like that. I think it's been long enough since we had Car Talk. Apex says, I asked this in the server, but since you mentioned it just now, what is the difference between the active window and the active input window in the window manager? Oh, shoot. I don't know. I mean, I probably knew at some point, but I don't know anymore. Active. Is my C line crashing? Seriously? Okay. I'm just going to restart C line. The difference between active window and active input window, I'm just thinking, why would they be different? It seems like there should only be one active window. I wonder if it's something about you have an active window, but then it has like a modal pop-up or something, and then the modal pop-up is the active input window. I don't... Okay, this is just not active. So there's active window and active input window. I don't know off the top of my head what the difference is. It might be that they could become one and the same. I would think that the people who worked most recently on this, like Thank You Very Cool, or maybe F Arhun, or Tom, or somebody, usually people in the Userland channel will know. I'll find your message later, or you can ping me about it, and we can figure out what that is. But I'm not sure. Colin says, Andreas, I love your hacking videos. They are fantastic. While watching your videos, I noticed your awesome skills about Git. Would you like to show us some common workflows about it? Well, I guess the most common workflows are things you already see in my videos. So it's not really, I don't really have any tricks that I do outside of the videos a lot. So what you see is kind of what you get in the videos. My workflow is as you've seen already, very much structured around sort of incremental construction of patches or commits, where I have the gap alias, which is short for git add-p. And this allows you to stage individual hunks. Instead of staging your entire diff that you have currently against your head, you get polled about each individual diff. So you can sort of micromanage exactly how your commits end up looking. That is sort of the secret sauce to my workflow. And but if you have specific Git questions, truth be told, like, I'm not really a super Git master. I'm just really comfortable with the specific workflow that I have, but I tend to not use a lot of branches. I don't use merging as a feature, so I stay in a specific corner of Git, and I've become very comfortable with it. But I wouldn't say that I have awesome Git skills, just serviceable Git skills. Anyways, if you have some specific question, I'm happy to try to answer it. But git add-p is really the cornerstone of my workflow. And by the way, when I started the channel, it was not. I didn't even know about it when I started the channel, and people told me about it in comments, and it changed the way I use Git. So really appreciate that, by the way. Let's see. Kenneth says, my Yaktoberfest t-shirt is allegedly currently being printed. Indeed. Mine was shipped earlier today. I got a notification, so very hyped. Colton says, Yacht seems like it was built very well, very, very quickly. You had a multi-featured language in 2 weeks. What do you think helped you have that level of productivity and speed for making Yacht? Well, I think JT was a big help. I had no language design or implementation experience really of my own before. So, and JT is a vibrant enthusiast for making languages. So it was not the first or second time for JT, and that was a huge help. And then essentially the way we worked was that, and I mean, the way we worked on Yacht in the beginning was just that we would get on a call, talk about some features that we would want to do or try out, and then JT would just work hard on implementing the features while I would run behind and try to do little things here and there to move things forward. But the secret sauce was just having somebody with a lot of experience. And I guess from my side, my contribution to the productivity was that I had a very specific idea already of what it is that we want to achieve. That helped a lot from my side, because it was not as exploratory as you might think. Like we went into it with knowing that, like, okay, we want something that is a systems language, but it's safe, and we're willing to compromise on performance to make it really pleasant to use, but not too much compromise, but some. And we want it to be OOP friendly, like object orientation friendly. And then once those constraints were established, it was just a matter of sketching out lines between all those dots, basically. Let's see. Smelly J says, would it be possible to create a custom Windows Server type thing to customize the desktop to our liking? Like, for example, replacing Explorer.exe in Windows with a custom version written by you. Of course you could. Of course you could. Fikizar says, some of my stupid comments ended up in Commute Talk some years ago. Can we still ask stupid questions for Car Talk? Of course you can. I can't promise you that I will answer particularly stupid questions, but feel free to ask anything, and we will try to make nice videos around it. But please put questions as YouTube comments, not here in the live chat, because this live chat is harder for me to access afterwards. It's much less convenient. Comments are very easy to index. What's up, Dammy Killer? The video captions master extraordinaire. Very much appreciate your work. Alex, how's it going? Ein Anton says, what do you think about the Nix package manager? I don't have an opinion about package management in general. And he goes on to ask, are there any plans on a package management solution for Serenity? No, there are no plans. As Slendy says right here, no plan whatsoever. Kenneth says, cool, then I'm guessing it will be shipped either today or early next week. Yeah, hopefully. Apex says, Yacht to me is like the Dart of systems programming. Easy to use, easy to read, takes inspiration from the best parts and syntax features of other languages, but adds its own new ideas. Right. Yeah, that's definitely the kind of flavor we're going for. Something where we're happy to steal all the good ideas that other people have and just tune it to our specific needs. And so far, I really, really like the way it's turning out. There are, I think, almost all the core features are in place now. We just need to refine them a bit more, and then we'll see what happens. But I'm happy with the way it's going. That Chris says, there is a package manager channel on Discord. Yes, there is. Although, truth be told, that channel mostly exists so that people who ask about package management can all meet there, and everybody who doesn't care can just mute that channel. But you didn't hear that from me. So MSCLR HD, muscular hood, and maybe there's a way to say that. Muscular head. Is that your name? Muscular head? Will you end up incrementally rewriting libweb, libjs, ladybird, etc. in Yacht like Mozilla experimented with Rust? Who knows? I don't know. There is no plan. But I'm definitely going to try to make use of Yacht in parts of all of the above, and we'll see how that feels, how it fits, one step at a time. Alex says, with Git, you said you don't use branches. Well, I do, just not a lot. I see you work on main and videos. Do you only focus on one item at a time? Yes, I usually only focus on one item at a time. And if I do anything that spans across multiple items, then I usually work on a branch locally for a couple of days or something like that. But I try to stay very current, and I guess that's something I got from working on WebKit in the past, where everybody who works on WebKit, they just live at the tip of tree, at the head of the development branch at all times, and you just sort of get used to that. So that's where I'm coming from. And now it's 5 o'clock. So it's actually time to wind down because, as I mentioned, we're doing shorter office hours. But I did start actually 5 past, so we can spend a few more minutes here. Fikisar says, almost forgot. A week or so ago, I finally wanted to compile and start contributing to OS. However, is that open source? However, when I started compilation, my laptop started heating up so much and compilation lasted for 30 minutes. Is that normal? Or is it just first time compilation? I don't want to burn my CPU yet. Well, are you building Serenity? Because yeah, it can take a long time to build the whole thing. And slower computer will take a longer time to build, but it takes about half an hour on my laptop, which is, I guess, like 6 years old or something. So it is normal on an older computer or a slower computer that it would take 30 minutes. Yeah. It's but like once you have a build, as long as you don't pull from the master branch every 5 minutes, then you will usually be able to work incrementally on something locally, and then you'll only rebuild the parts that you actually change for the most part. MSCL plus RHD, it's all initials. All right, so not muscular head then. Muscle urged. Ubiquity says, how do you prepare for your bug fix videos? Do you prepare ahead of time or do you start recording and do it all in one take? I'm trying to learn some productivity tips to help me tackle new problems. So usually the way I prepare is that I'm working on the specific application that I want to bug fix in for the video. Like I'm working on it on the day before recording video. So then I'm already really context switched into that environment. So for example, if I'm doing a browser bug fixing video, then I usually start recording those after I've already been working on the browser that day for a couple hours. And that, I guess I'm trying to have that feeling of like being really comfortable from the get-go. So I'm already warm, but the preparation is just working on the app or library or whatever. And if you're trying to, like a good productivity tip for tackling new problems can be basically what I just said, where before you tackle the problem, is there something you can simplify about the environment around the problem? So can you sort of do some prep work to make the problem smaller or make it easier to address? I forget the exact phrasing, but somebody was saying that like first make the problem easy and then solve the easy problem or something like that. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but basically you can prepare for problem solving by paving the way around it. Venkatesh says, if anyone wanted to start contributing to Serenity for the first time on what they like, what they need to know, and where to start, you just need to start by choosing something to work on. I usually recommend just trying out the system until you find a bug or something that you don't like, and then try to improve it and see what comes of it. And that means that everybody starts at from a different angle, like something that they care about, and that has worked really well so far. So I recommend that for you as well. And now it's 5:05, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all for coming to office hours. I really appreciate all the questions, all the comments, super chats, and the people joining the Yak herd and whatnot. So yeah, these are going to be a bit shorter going forward. And if you have questions for Car Talk, please drop a comment on the latest Car Talk video, and I will pick some of them up and make videos about that and so on, and we'll take it from there. Thank you all for coming, and if you end up working on Serenity or the related projects this weekend, then come hang out with us on Discord, because it's a lot more fun to do stuff together, right? Especially programming, but most stuff. See you all next time. Bye.